Hello my beautiful drone flying friends. So today we're going to talk about why are drones so expensive, what you're really paying for and why it matters. Okay, let's get into the content. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification. I'm going to be sharing with you everything that I've learned about drones. Okay, let's get over to the content. Why are drones, especially DJI drones, so expensive? When I was looking to buy a drone, I just couldn't believe how expensive they were. It seems to be that, you need to spend over 1,000 Australian dollars or 1,000 something US dollars. I don't know the exchange rate. So looking back to when I was buying my first drone, when you decide to spend less on something, you're essentially getting less features. Now, we'll talk about the sort of things you can get in a minute, but I want to just be upfront and say that the main reason you spend a reasonable amount of money on a drone is because you can then trust it. And that's something that became perfectly clear as I've been flying more and more over the last couple of years, is that I would not feel comfortable sending my drone, an expensive thing, whether it's $500 or $1,000, it's still not an amount of money anyone I think particularly wants to lose. So what you're really paying for is a bit of machinery or a tool and electronics that you trust enough to send off up to like 2 kilometers away and up into the sky and over water. Like I've got some awesome shots shooting dolphins looking straight down. It was a windy-ish day, but I trusted my drone at that point that I was like, yeah, I'm just going to send it out. And when I first saw someone fly a drone, I was amazed at how brazen they were, but they had a good drone, they trusted it, and they could send it out. They knew that it had a great return to home. I'm talking about the DJI series in particular here. They knew that it could handle higher winds than we were sort of like encountering that day. And they did it because, and they trusted it because they spent enough money to get a good tool. And that's what a drone is. It's a tool to achieve a viewpoint, a shot, that you couldn't achieve any other way, not without hiring a helicopter anyway. So yeah, really, they're expensive because you're paying for trust. Trust in the electronics, trust in the team that put it together. And look, drones are expensive because they are at the apex of a range of high-tech industries. Even the software on your phone needs to be developed so that it's user-friendly. Forget about the fact you need to have engineers, electronic engineers, you need an R&D department, that you need input from photographers and videographers. Like all of those things are super expensive, and you need clever people. So that's why they're more expensive, but I feel like it's worth it because of the trust that you are able to put in that bit of equipment and that tool. So go to droneflyingpro.com and type in why are drones so expensive. You'll see my full blog article, but what it does is it looks into more detail about the sorts of features, the camera, the gimbal, the batteries that you get, the remote control as well, at higher price points. And what you'll see is that at lower price points, let's start with the camera. So the DJI Mavic Mini is about $590 US, and it's got a very limited camera. It's got 12 megapixel camera with a 2.7K image resolution. And then you look at the next one, the DJI Mavic Air 2, which is the latest Mavic Air in the DJI series, and you're starting to get the 4K resolution. You're starting to get much more options in terms of frame rate, so you can get ultra high definition 4K images in slow motion at high frame rates. And then obviously at the very top, the DJI Inspire 2 at $4,400, then the cameras are sold separately, because at that price point, people want very specific images, they want specific quality, they want specific sensors. And of course, the camera is, for a lot of people, the main reason they buy a drone. So forget the propellers, the motors, the arms, all of that stuff. It is all about the camera. And so quite simply, the more expensive the drone, the better the camera will be, to the point where the camera needs to be carried by a drone. So like the Inspire 2 doesn't come with a camera necessarily. You have to, it's there to facilitate lifting a heavier camera. And so, yeah, the more expensive the drone, the better the camera. So that is always something to pay attention. For a lot of hobbyists like myself, the DJI Mavic Air, even the mini series, probably is more than enough. For YouTube, what do you want? HD, maybe 4K, but only 4K if your computer can handle it. And yeah, I mean, there are tricks like using proxies and stuff, but yeah, the more expensive the camera, the more expensive the drone. Okay, let's talk about another really important factor, and that's the gimbal. So the gimbal is what attaches the camera to the drone and kind of smooths out any inconsistencies while the drone is flying, while it's sort of buffering in the wind and that sort of stuff. But what you're doing is, the more expensive the drone, the more controllable range you have of the gimbal. That leaves much more room for creative freedom. It allows you to get shots that you couldn't otherwise get with cheaper drones. And also the gimbal just is able to accommodate sort of like the movements of the drone much easier. So you are paying more for a gimbal that's better, which will result in better shots, which makes absolute sense. If you've got a really awesome camera, you might as well have a really awesome gimbal to go on. Otherwise, it's just going to be blurry and not very smooth. So yes, gimbal, as the price in drone goes up, the gimbal quality and the range of controllable motion and the stability also goes up. Okay, so another thing is remote controllers. You'll see that in very cheap kind of drones towards the DJI Mavic Mini series, you don't receive a drone remote controller. Everything's done on an app, and that's because remote controls have their own battery, have antenna, like all of that stuff is really expensive. So the more expensive the drone, the better and more kind of feature-packed remote controller you can expect. Now there are some awesome ones. I love the smart controller with inbuilt screen. So the more expensive the drone, the more feature-packed remote control you can expect to get. It just makes the flying experience much better. When you're a pilot, you literally stand there and send the drone away, and all you've got to look at, hopefully you can see. I think in a lot of countries the law is you need line of sight, but you're really using the remote controller to do everything. That is your user experience. And so having a really awesome remote controller actually improves the flying feeling and the quality, times 10, just because you're not on a tiny screen trying to find it. Having an actual remote control to touch and feel, and use the joysticks to move the drone about. That's what quality piloting feels like. And so you have to pay more because you're getting extra features in your remote control. And also, as you pay more for drones, what you'll find is their batteries get longer. As consumers, we expect now a drone to be in the air between sort of more than 20 minutes, I think, is reasonable. And so the batteries get bigger. Batteries are actually incredibly expensive. And the high power usage of drones means the discharge rate is very high. And so you need a lot of advanced technology in the battery to actually make sure that the power is delivered consistently. And also, as consumers, we want batteries that charge quickly. And so you'll see a lot of these kind of smart battery recharge stations, and that's because it's not just as simple as pumping in as much power as possible. It has to be controlled, and the cells need to be balanced and all that sort of stuff. So the battery technology does play a huge role in the expense of a drone. So the best drones for beginners really are ones that are no longer toys, but they have enough features that enable you to do what you want. And that is like the Mavic Mini, DJI Mavic Mini. There's also the Parrot Anafi, which is a fantastic drone. It has all of the camera aspects that you would expect from a higher end DJI drone, but it's a little bit less expensive. Each time you're making a judgment about buying a less expensive drone, you're essentially getting less features. So you do have to always balance up what you really want. And look, do not overlook secondhand drones. There are a few things you need to check: flight time, battery recharge, how many times it's been recharged, if it's had any major incidents, propellers. Like, there's all of these things that you need to check, but don't overlook secondhand drones, because you know, for the amount of flying you may end up doing as a hobby, a secondhand drone may be perfect for you. And that's what I did, and I don't regret it at all. So the question is, will prices drop? Now, no. The way this seems to be going is that drones, instead of getting less expensive, you know, the older ones you can pick up for less and less, but the sort of cutting edge of drone technology is getting more and more expensive. So a 2008 white paper shows that drones are getting more and more expensive year on year. And that's, I think, because people expect more and more features from their drones. Consumers are starting to understand that really what you're paying for is trust that it will do a job that you've bought it to do. It's kind of like a laptop, you know, like, sure, you can get cheap laptops, but it can't handle the video editing that you want to do. Same with drones. Sure, you can buy a cheap drone, but it may not give you the shots or the stability or the feature set that you need. And so, yeah, as prices go up, we are expecting more and more features, longer flight times, better hardware, and I feel like the cutting edge is getting more expensive. All right, let me know in the comments what you think. Why are drones so expensive? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification, and I shall see you in the next video.